Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live Substack conversation on public safety. I'm glad you could join us. We're in a live format. I've been hoping to get a couple other friends online here, but we're still learning how to manage Substack Live. So if you invite people to come speak, you until they join, you can't go live. So it's 1:31 Eastern Time, and the show must go on. So I went ahead and, um, as they say in the South, mashed the go live button, and here we are. So the focus on today is basically we wanted to uh, just talk about the things that we're going to cover, which are the current events in Washington D.C., Minneapolis. Minneapolis was a huge public safety event this week. The latest on upcoming public safety legislation, what's in it, why it matters, and how you can help move it forward, and a current officer prosecution case and how the Police Officers Defense Coalition is working to ensure due process and a fair defense. Unfortunately, I don't have one of my experts is unable to join us right now, so we probably will not be able to add that officer prosecution case. So right now we are at the point where we'd like to just discuss the events that are currently happening in Washington D.C. And while you see the mainstream media has a lot of news that says, "Wow, these things are happening. We've got troops in the street. We've got all these events happening." These were um, based on my observations, these were never intended to be a long-term solution. But they do prove a very good point, which is that crime can be controlled. We can control free people, and people are able to live in liberty and still be able to live crime-free. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, people who live crime-free live in far greater liberty than people who are afraid to go out on the streets and afraid to do their jobs, afraid to exercise, afraid to go outside and do whatever it is that they want to do. Feel free to do. Go to parks. Go walk to the library. Don't take your car to go to the grocery store. All of these things are factors of liberty, and that's what we're founded on. I think liberty is the main mission of policing in the U.S. We think, well, law enforcement's the main mission of law enforcement in the U.S. Law enforcement to that end is the main mission. That's the reason why we've got to that's the reason why we've got to support the police, and we've got to make neighborhoods livable. And it is striking, the reflex that the communities have had about this is something I've heard for years, which is the concern of over policing. And you can over police. I mean, I've seen that happen, and I had a very good friend and good commander who was over our TAC units about 10 years ago, and he says, if I put all of my guys in that housing project, no one's going to move. No one's going to move or get around at all. So we're not going to be doing anything about the crime. We're just going to suppress it briefly. We're going to displace it. We'll make it move. But we're not going to be locking up the people that need to go to jail unless people are given, even crooks need to have the liberty to feel free to move, not live in an occupation. But the idea that you could have a city like Washington D.C., and it's a city I love. I was born just outside of Washington D.C. For it to have such a terrible reputation for crime in the United States, which a higher murder rate than the city of Chicago, is absolutely intolerable from a public safety perspective. It is something that has to change, and it has to change now. So it was an object lesson by the current administration not to increase the amount of troops on the street or anything like that. it's actually even gotten the Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., to admit that, yes, we have had a reduction in crime because of these special offers and special initiatives, and that should be the goal. There shouldn't be an area where crime is tolerated. So I think it's time to move on to Minneapolis, and I don't have a lot to say about the Minneapolis incident until I first say that the most important thing that everyone can do, well, besides subscribing to American Peace Officer, is to please subscribe to Keith Graves and Christian Warrior Training. He has about 48,000 subscribers on his platform. He has a YouTube channel, and he absolutely is the tip of the spear when it comes to securing houses of worship. And now that the news is coming out saying that the Catholic Church in Minneapolis did not have adequate security and had been requesting additional security for the past 2 years. That's something, yeah, that we need to ponder. We need to how do you say it, noodle on over the next few weeks. But you can, for free, you can go to Christian Warrior Training, and he outlines how to maintain a church safety team. And I've followed him long enough to know that if the principles that have been followed on that are available for free from him, you can download PDFs, and you can really set up an entire church policy based on and training structure based on what you're able to get and download for free from him. The videos for free. Everything is incredibly reasonable. The title Christian Warrior Training, I love it. Maybe you don't, but there has to be a warrior uh, playing the role of a guardian. There's just no question about it. And he is absolutely correct. Also, especially illustrated in the Minneapolis case, that it all starts in the parking lot, or all starts in the perimeter of the house of worship property. This has happened, so frequently, and I'm sure a lot of people want to discuss the fact that in the past several consecutive uh, school shootings, or school targets uh, by people who are intentionally going in to be shooters, are people that have been a part of the transgender and transsexual communities. Yep, that's a fact. That's something we actually have to say bravely and boldly. We have to say that there is something going on there with those people that are confused about. Um, and it's not just their gender; it's their core identity. I mean, the idea that you would want to go out and harm children, that you have to travel to do that. You have to plan in advance to do that. You have to stockpile. And you have to train. You have to equip. I saw the videos of Audrey Hale going through the Covenant Presbyterian School in Nashville. She was following tactical training in clearing rooms and looking for targets. So, but to a great extent, that is just a huge distraction. Now, I'm gonna talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ real quick, and I'm gonna say, we're not seeing the people sitting in their cars recording themselves screeching out loud. That are people that openly profess to have been saved by the blood of Jesus Christ in their life. People who say that they believe that Jesus Christ was born of a virgin birth, that he was cruel, he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, and that he was resurrected by God, vindicating his sinless life. We don't see that in the character of those people, and we need to discuss that. But what we also see is another comorbidity or um, failure is that we have a generation that suffers from a great deal of anxiety and depression. And there are so many people that are currently being treated for depression and anxiety with different medicines. Then we also see, and we see it in so many controversial officer involved shootings, is that people um, are self medicating using cannabis products to deal with their anxiety. And I didn't know this a couple of years ago, but that is absolutely the worst thing you can possibly do is to try to self-medicate anxiety with cannabis and with THC. It won't work. It is going to result in psychosis, and we're seeing more mainstream voices come forward, and including Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew has a 5-minute PragerU video on what cannabis used to be and what it is today, and how basically since 2011, cannabis use among adults and youth have doubled. And the use of cannabis right now in young people, where their brains are still being formed, is something that can completely derail them for life. Uh, and do we need studies? Do we need proofs? Well, we've got the studies and we've got the proofs, but you can just go to a state that celebrates having passed recreational marijuana laws to really see the loss in the tents on the streets of Colorado, perhaps, where you see all these kids that are completely robbed of their ambition. Is there medical use or value to marijuana? Is there therapeutic use? Wouldn't be surprised. I believe that people that are going through chemo can use it as an anti-nausea medicine, but we know many things that it doesn't cure, and the reason it remains a Schedule 1 drug is not because it's more dangerous than fentanyl, but because it meets the 5-point criteria as to whether this is something that has a medically accepted use. Fentanyl does, marijuana, cannabis does not. Is it something where there have been extensive studies proving this? No. And are you going to receive marijuana therapy if you're taken to the hospital? No, you're much more likely to be taken to the hospital because of marijuana ingestion, rather than being treated for whatever you're going in the ambulance to the hospital for. So it's yeah. So we have that, and every time I see a story now, my ears perk up, and I see we just had a missing youth in Florida, and he was missing from the I-75 area, and I had to wait for about a week for the story to come out after he was found deceased in a retention pond. But he was with his cousins. It was the first time he met these cousins, and he went in the car with them to cross the state to Brevard County, and began having a, a psychotic episode in the car, insisting to get out, sending text messages, please help me. And he just became like a madman. They had to let him out of the car, and he just ran away from them as fast as he could. They looked for him for a long time, and then they left his backpack just on the edge and his cell phone on the edge of the highway there. But and then they went on to wherever they were going to. But we keep hearing these stories, and so I really would like to hear the medicine and the medication side, and the drug screen and drug tox studies on the shooter from Minneapolis, and see whether those things had gone on. So I think that's all I really have on Minneapolis. And please, if you don't remember anything else that I have to say about the Minneapolis shooting, please Uh, just do yourself and do your church or your house of worship. He doesn't care what kind of house of worship you have, but he wants all houses of worship protected. Please go to www.christianwarriortraining.com. It's a Substack. On that Substack, you'll find many free articles. He appreciates people who are paid subscribers, but he offers the majority of his content is for free, just like me. So I hope that you have the opportunity to go over there, look him up on YouTube under Christian Warrior Training, and he does immediate breakdowns. And because of his network of sources, he really has uh, very timely information that most people aren't able to access before anybody else can get it. So he covered the shooting at the church in Houston, Texas, which unfortunately was another transgender individual who wound up in that Joel Osteen's megachurch there. So that was a very very sad and tragic event that could have even been more serious, more sad, because that person brought a small child with them to their shooting spree. But fortunately, that was resolved by some very brave and unarmored um, Texas Texas officials that were working the church. So we've been talking about qualified immunity, and I think one of the key issues is how do we break this idea of what qualified immunity is and what it isn't. And so we've had some revelation lately on that, which, of course, what we need to do is we need to convince the majority of 535 members of Congress, and ultimately, that's all we really have to do is to get enough 60 votes in the Senate and a majority of votes in the House of Representatives, and we're going to be able to do that. But we need to ensure that this the codification of qualified immunity is not intended to uh, relieve officers or their departments of the responsibilities. That this is an essential protection that officers don't just, it's not just desirable. I think it's really necessary for people for officers to know that when they go out on the job, that they're going to be covered for the actions that they take on the road. So I don't think that when you sit down with somebody who's receptive, it doesn't take them very long to figure out that getting qualified immunity and getting qualified immunity passed is essential. And some of the other legislation that we have going on is the Protect and Serve Act. That's something that needs to get moved out of committee. So, do you have political influence? Of course you do. You can go ahead and reach out to your to the members of Congress in your area. I was able to meet with one of them this week. It was ribbon cutting. It was a surprise. I didn't happen to bring this up because I'm going to be bringing much more up with him later. Um, but these currently in recess, these people are accessible and they're in your community. You can meet with them now, and they depending on who you voted into office, it depends on how receptive they're going to be to helping pass this legislation. So what else are we looking at here? So yeah, we want to really move those things forward. We're in the 119th Congress, and we don't know what the midterms are going to bring. And if we're going to get some of this stuff done, now's the time. We're really looking at having a secure majority only for the next really 14 months. So any action that we can spur on for that, now is the time that we need to do it. So I don't have the 202 number for you to call but you'll probably do what I would probably do, which is just Google how to reach my representative, and you'd be able to reach them either in Washington that way, or in their local areas. Your representatives from your House of Representatives, they should be doing some recess work in your areas. Not all of them, but the good ones. The good ones will be doing that, visiting the local government, visiting the the state representatives in that area, giving them an update on what's going on. So, and I don't have a current case to give you, but we do have a situation where officers are frequently being prosecuted by rogue prosecutors. Now, you probably heard the name George Soros a lot, and if you're like me, when you hear something that often from and with that regularity, you begin to think somebody's just spending too much time preoccupied with George Soros. But in 2016, it happened to me. I wound up being working in a jurisdiction that did have a Soros prosecutor, and they wasted no time in making a point of what they were and weren't going to be doing for law enforcement in our circuit. And in our circuit, the announcement came that probably the most shocking and detrimental announcement came after one of our police officers was brutally murdered by a man who was wanted already for murdering his girlfriend and their unborn child. At that time, the prosecutor announced out of the blue that she would not be seeking the death penalty for this case or for any other cases. And this was something, it was devastating for our community. It wound up being national news, but it was just emblematic of how bad it can be when you have a prosecutor who decides that they're not going to, prosecute all crimes. Her successor was somebody from her office, another Soros-funded prosecutor. She wound up working with the Meek Mill Foundation in their cases, and it was uh, basically a decision that they might as well have been like in Manhattan, but this was happening in the heart of Florida. That there were cases that just wouldn't be prosecuted during the last years of my career, last days, literally. Um, we talked about, are we going to send over any type of career criminal, habitual felony offender enhancement requests? What's the use? And this prosecutor has also decided that there are a number of non non-view misdemeanors where an arrest was not made. And now there are, in our state, there are what's called non-view misdemeanors where officers can make an arrest. I'm not sure what it's like in your jurisdiction, but when you have, you put all your probable cause into your charging affidavit, and you send the case over at large to the prosecutor's office. And they had a backlog of thousands of these cases that they said, well, we have to work the cases only where a physical arrest was made. Well, that was ridiculous. So, the governor actually sent his attorney general down to provide them assistance with some prosecutors from a section of the AG's office called the Office of Statewide Prosecution to assist with that, and they seem to have gotten the message. But the idea is that we can have officers question the actually, I think that this is really relevant. We We only have 4 minutes left. But what's especially relevant is that this prosecutor wound up doing such a poor job that the governor eventually suspended her, and he put a judge, a circuit court judge, as the replacement prosecutor for that circuit. But then this replacement prosecutor, he decided that anytime there was any type of serious injury or use of force or deadly use of force, that he was going to convene a grand jury on that. And that's clearly not what the purpose of a grand jury is. So even when you have people, even the replacements, we have to watch that. I was aware of a case in Austin, Texas, where this one poor officer, he wound up being prosecuted twice by, and I think it was Garza was the DA out there. If that was the Los Angeles DA, I apologize, but it was just a malicious prosecution of the police officer. We had that with I think it was Terrence Sutton in Washington D.C. And then when even if you get the president to grant people a pardon for these convictions, you're basically saying that instead of it being um, an injustice, they're just being relieved of the punishment of what crime they may or may not have committed. Because a lot of people who have pardons actually, committed crimes. But so many of these cases in the police officers, they didn't do that. So anyway, just in closing on that point, and then we're going to wrap up for good for today. Um, Let me, before I forget, let me wish you a fantastic and safe and enjoyable holiday weekend. Enjoy your Labor Day. Hope you get Labor Day off. If you get another day off instead of Labor Day, I hope that's even more fun because you won't be dealing with the crowds. Please check out Keith Graves at christianwarriortraining.com. I swear by him, and he is the preeminent expert in this field. And as soon as you check him out, you'll see why. Also, please check out my friend and colleague and expert, Bert Eiler. He's at Police Officers Defense Coalition. So please just Google Police Officers Defense Coalition. And so I'd just like to say that if today's conversation was valuable, next time we're going to have some more folks on here. It's not going to be just me talking for half an hour. If today's conversation was valuable, I encourage you to subscribe here on Substack. Subscribing ensures that you'll get updates, articles, and invitations to future live discussions delivered directly to you. And it helps us grow this community of people who care deeply about public safety and leadership. So thank you for joining this Substack Live conversation. Please stay tuned for upcoming sessions. And as always, thank you for your commitment to sound policy and public safety and principled leadership that's in short supply. And we'll see you next time.